Israel's goals were to curb their nuclear program and then also curb their medium intercontinental ballistic missile production facility. Their ability to, excuse me, their ability to facilitate that, I feel like, hasn't gotten coverage. And also of note, I feel like people are so on a hair trigger to jump to World War III, whether it's actually they feel that way or if it's just rhetoric, which I feel 90% of it is just rhetoric and noise. We haven't bombed their power grid. We haven't bombed their true economic centers for their production of their oil or like their gas. We really are giving them time to come to the table. I hope they do, but I think a lot of people are overemphasizing a lot of things that they don't know a lot about too. That goes on everywhere. But I would just like to focus on that point. And I think that if we continue on, we'll go ahead and grab that, help the Israelis to dismantle their ability because China flew in a whole bunch of equipment when they got wiped out in October, I believe. Might be a little silly on that, and maybe somebody can speak to that. But anyway, I just wanted to
Yep.
comment on that.
Yep. Raised a lot of really good points, and want everybody to pick up on whatever they wish. Nina, you first.
Yeah, I mean, we just gonna bomb them a little bit. We just gonna bomb them just a little bit, and then all of a sudden they're gonna come to the table. That's madness. We are breeding resentment generationally. We have no right. Netanyahu's government had no right to do to Iran what they did, regardless. A lot of international experts have been saying on all the Sunday shows that the positioning of Iran nuclear capability is the same that it was 2 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago. And there is no proof that they have all the things necessary to amass a nuclear weapon. So if we are saying that any nation can wake up on any given day and decide that they don't like this regime or that regime and then just bomb sovereign nations just randomly, then we have a bigger problem than I thought. That's number one. And two, number three is we're talking about other people's flesh and blood. So there are going to be casualties, both in Iran. There may be American casualties at some point. Innocent people are going to be collateral damage. The environment surely is going to be damaged by this. So I just don't understand, Mark, for the life of me, how people can just casually say, oh, we'll just bomb them a little bit. And now they're going to come to the table and be willing to negotiate. That's just like somebody coming up to you and slapping the hell out of you and saying, now let's sit down and talk.
I
This is
Dan,
understand.
not human nature.
Dan.
Like makes right. I mean,
Well, I agree with Nina, and I disagree with Nina a little bit. I do agree that I'm a little curious at this argument from the administration today that we're not at war with Iran, we're just at war with their nuclear program. I mean, in my opinion, I'm kind of with you. You can't be a little bit pregnant. You bomb a country, whatever the asset is, you bomb a country, right? So if they just responded and say, well, we just blew up your base in Iraq and killed 400 Marines, but we're not at war with America, I think we'd all be like, WTF, go to hell. But I do disagree in that they are a threat to the United States. Bill, you've said it. Like, they were very involved in Iraq. They were very involved in Afghanistan, let alone, other activities they did. And it has been our policy, Democrat and Republican administrations, that they cannot achieve nuclear weapons. And we can, I'm sure we'll find out here soon or in history just how close they were. But there is no debating that they were getting very, very close.
But then
I mean,
shouldn't we be pushing for nuclear disarmament
well, we
of
have.
all
We
nations?
have.
I mean, look, we have, and there's two ways to look at that, Nina. And I mentioned this last night. I agree with a lot of Obama people who are rolling their eyes that are like, you undid our deal, and then you kind of came back in the last month and said, I want basically the same deal, right? But it's also pretty clear that the Obama deal, Iran didn't stop. They moved pieces around. They kind of kept doing it behind the curtain. And so I do think Trump gave it a pretty good effort to try to get a deal. But, this is why presidents for 5 years or five different presidents have kicked the can down the road. It was ultimately this exact question.
Yeah, Bill, I want to get you in, but I want to read you some reporting from NBC News. Iran sent a communique to Trump in the days before last night's strikes. threatening to activate sleeper cell terror inside the U.S. if it were attacked. The message got to Trump through an intermediary at the Group of Seven summit in Canada last week, which Trump left early, blah, blah, blah. Bill, I'd love for you to respond to both what Mr. Shaw said and asked, and also this NBC report.
Yeah, and really quick before and I definitely want to respond to Mr. Shaw's question. It's very important. But first, I also disagree with Mr. Vance's statement that we haven't been at war with Iran, or we aren't at war with Iran. The problem is Iran has been at war with us since its founding. I've outlined that. It's clear. Sometimes you don't get to pick the wars that you're in. Sometimes they pick you, and the Iranians have picked us. But to answer Mr. Shaw's question, yeah, I think the talk of a spread of World War III here, and I have concerns, don't get me wrong, but I think it's very much on the low end of the spectrum. You'd have to get the Russians involved and the Chinese involved. And the reality is that while the Russians and the Chinese use countries like Iran as a foil against us, the last thing they want is a nuclear war on their borders in their region to pollute their countries. They also have their great concern about the mullah regimes. Both countries have experienced threats from jihadist terrorism over the past. They know what the Iranians are, just like they understand what the Pakistanis are, the governments, not the people, to be clear. And they look at these countries side-eyed. Now, as far as the issue of sleeper cells, if that report is true, then here you have it. We're being threatened by a country that has said they've put sleeper cells in the United States to attack us. You know, I don't know what more I could say about this. Yes, I'd love to cut a deal with the Iranians and not go to war with them. But again, we have been at war with the Iranians. Again, the Iranians have killed thousands of our people, sabotaged our foreign policy in the region, and is responsible. You know, it is the destabilizing force in the Middle East and essentially in large portions of the world. And we can't pretend that we know that the Iranians have attempted to launch attacks. They tried to blow up the Saudi embassy a decade ago. We foiled that plot. And there's been other plots like that have been attempted to be executed by the Iranians on our soil. And we're supposed to act like this is a country that's, just really wants to get along, but it doesn't.
They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park, hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America.